For a game that released in 2010, Black Ops 1 had fairly good graphics when it came to the cinematic aspect. The shots of Mason being held captive and the President's meetings looked better than many games that were released in the same era, and there's obviously a reason for it. For Black Ops, Treyarch used a motion capture technology similar to the one used in James Cameron's film Avatar, which allows accurate facial expressions and the capturing of the whole performance of the actor. This was a landmark moment for the Call of Duty franchise. Rather than simply recording voice lines in a studio booth and animating characters separately, Treyarch adopted what is often called performance capture, which is a more holistic and advanced form of motion capture that records the entire body, voice, and face simultaneously. As Treyarch's game director Dave Anthony described it, the technology allowed them to film an actor's body movements, record his voice, and capture his facial movements all at the same time, and not just for one actor at a time. They could get all the actors together and do an entire scene in one take, which opened up enormous creative opportunities for the quality of what the actors were doing. This was a massive leap from older recording techniques where performances were often assembled piecemeal. Activision and Treyarch officially announced on September 7, 2010, that award-winning actors Gary Oldman and Ed Harris had joined the cast of Call of Duty Black Ops, with screenwriter David S. Goyer also brought on board to provide script consultation and story development support. Oldman reprised his role as Viktor Reznov from Call of Duty World at War, while Harris was cast as one of the game's main characters, CIA operative Jason Hudson. Sam Worthington, who had just starred as the lead in James Cameron's 2009 Avatar, was cast as CIA operative Alex Mason, who we all know is the game's primary protagonist. Worthington voices the troubled character throughout the series, with varying degrees of his Australian accent slipping through. The presence of Worthington in particular was significant as he had literally just worked on the most technologically advanced motion capture production in film history, giving Treyarch direct access to an actor with first-hand familiarity with that pipeline. The performance capture sessions were not quick cameos. The actors committed to the process like a film shoot. Sam Worthington went through extensive motion capture sessions for Black Ops alongside fellow cast members, and the game used state-of-the-art motion scanning technology to record his facial expressions, body movement, and voice acting simultaneously. Worthington himself described the experience. "We had the motion capture headset on and did the scenes like you normally would. It was a lot of fun." According to Dave Anthony, Worthington took direction extremely well. Anthony said that he would come to me many times after he would do the scenes, and I'm perfectly happy with his performance. And he told me, "Dave, let me see it. Let me see." Then we'd show it to him and he's like, "You okay with that? You sure?" They give this level of commitment. There's sometimes a perception that celebrities may come onto a game and just phone it in. I can tell you our experience with Gary Oldman and Sam Worthington. These guys are into it. The choice to invest in Avatar-style performance capture was directly tied to the kind of story Treyarch wanted to tell. In an effort to make Black Ops feel more like an epic interactive action film, the developers also enlisted David S. Goyer, who co-wrote The Dark Knight, to consult on the game's time-hopping script. Instead of the story unfolding chronologically, levels are presented as memories, sometimes interrupted by the garbled voice of Mason's interrogator. Anthony explains that for the first time, they had really nailed the emotional side of things and said, "If we couldn't have actually authentically replicated the emotion of the actors' performances, we would not have been able to pull off the story because it's all rooted in human emotion." The technology was not just a technical showpiece, it was a narrative necessity. A story built around psychological trauma, brainwashing, and Cold War paranoia required characters whose faces could convey real human weight and ambiguity. The Avatar-derived capture system made that possible. The gamble on cinematic quality and A-list talent paid off enormously. Call of Duty Black Ops earned $360 million on its launch day alone, and $650 million within its first 5 days of release, surpassing records held by Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. After a month and a half, Black Ops crossed $1 billion in worldwide revenue. Treyarch studio head Mark Lemire said of the casting, "Oldman, Harris, and Goyer are considered some of Hollywood's finest talents, and they perfectly complement Call of Duty Black Ops' ambitious and immersive single-player experience. Their contributions have helped us to push the boundaries of our storytelling and character development far beyond anything we have ever attempted before in the franchise." The use of avatar-comparable motion capture technology, combined with one of the most distinguished voice casts ever assembled for a video game at the time, established a new standard for what cinematic storytelling in a first-person shooter could look and feel like. And before we move on, a simple click on the subscribe button helps us bring facts on your favorite games to your front page, so don't forget to support us. The dedication of the development team did not end with just appointing real-life actors to capture all the emotion. Treyarch's approach to Call of Duty Black Ops was fundamentally different from previous entries in the franchise in one critical way. They didn't just want a game that looked like the Cold War. Instead, they wanted one that felt authentic from the inside out. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Hank Kiersey of the US Army had been the military advisor for the Call of Duty franchise since its inception, and his expertise was always valuable in the creation of Black Ops. But for this project, Treyarch brought in additional advisors with first-hand experience in Cold War military tactics. The choice to set the game during one of the most secretive and classified periods of American and Soviet military history meant that conventional research alone was not enough. As Treyarch studio head Mark Lemire explained, "Whenever we create Call of Duty, we do our research, we talk to veterans. We do want to understand what is real and what is authentic, and then we make a conscious decision to create the entertainment experience we want to make." This commitment to authenticity led Treyarch to two extraordinary individuals. One who had fought in the jungles of Southeast Asia as a member of one of the most secretive special operations units in American history, and another who had trained and served in the elite Soviet Special Forces during the Cold War itself. Major John L. Plaster is a decorated Vietnam War veteran who served in the Covert Studies and Observations Group, SOG. He served 3 combat tours in Vietnam as a member of the MAGAV SOG beginning in October 1968, leading intelligence gathering and recon teams in North Vietnamese army-controlled areas of Laos and Cambodia and along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. His qualifications went far beyond battlefield experience. Plaster co-founded a renowned sniper school that trains military and law enforcement personnel in highly specialized sniper tactics, and he's the author of The Ultimate Sniper, an advanced training manual for military and police snipers, the history of sniping and sharpshooting, and secret commandos behind enemy lines with the elite warriors of SOG, a memoir of his 3 years of service with SOG. In short, Plaster was one of the most documented and authoritative voices on the exact type of covert operations that Black Ops was trying to depict. Treyarch's own team confirmed in interviews that they talked to advisors like Major Don Plaster. The influence of Plaster's knowledge was felt deeply in specific game design decisions. Mark Lemire explained that Plaster informed the team about how SOG operatives would go to armories before missions and create their own custom loadouts for the weapons they had to carry. These were, in Lemire's words, the godfathers of tactical recon. When Treyarch came up with their missions, their designers thought directly about what loadouts would be needed to fulfill those missions. This is why, unlike earlier Call of Duty titles, Black Ops gave players access to a wide range of prototype, experimental, and modified weaponry that reflected what SOG operators genuinely used in the field. The modified military crossbow in the game is a direct example. Lemire stated it was inspired by a story we heard about from Major Plaster about a member of SOG who would equip himself with a bow for some of his real-life missions. To balance the American perspective with an equally authentic Soviet one, Treyarch brought in Solia Sunny Puzikas, a former Spetsnaz operative. Puzikas served in a special-purpose unit of the Soviet MVD, receiving extensive specialized training in small unit special tactics, urban and mountainous terrain warfare, crowd and riot control, small arms handling, demolitions, survival in hostile environments, and close-quarters battle. He participated in several special operations with his unit, including operational deployments to Central Asia and the Caucasus regions. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, Puzikas immigrated to the United States and carved out a niche as a trainer specializing in Sistema, a Russian martial art that integrates combat conditioning, firearms handling, and psychological resilience. Puzikas taught Treyarch specifically how Spetsnaz soldiers would react in combat, for example, rolling out of the line of fire. The Spetsnaz AI characters in the game were modeled after him, from their tactics and movements to his actual face. And this wasn't a simple consulting role, lads. What I think is that it extended into the studio's motion capture pipeline. Puzikas, a real former member of the Russian Spetsnaz, provided information for Treyarch about the Spetsnaz and also did the movement recording. He contributed to Black Ops by providing both motion capture and tactical insight, meaning his physical body, his movement patterns, and his combat techniques were literally digitized and embedded into the game's enemy characters. What makes the use of Plaster and Puzzikas so significant is that they represented both sides of the Cold War conflict at the heart of Black Ops. Treyarch consulted Special Forces veterans from both belligerents of the Cold War, Major John Plaster, who served in the MAC-V SOG during the Vietnam War, and former Soviet Special Forces operative Sonny Puzzikas. This dual consultancy gave the game a rare symmetry. The American SOG missions carried the authentic weight of Plaster's first-hand accounts, while the Soviet Spetsnaz enemies moved, fought, and looked like men who had actually lived that life. As Lemire noted, the SOG was so instrumental in Black Ops conducted during Vietnam that to cover the game's operations, the team had to look at what the SOG actually did in the field. The result was a game where even the smallest details, from weapon selection, troop movement to tactical reactions under fire, carried the fingerprints of real Cold War operators from both the American and Soviet sides. Did you know there's a Beatles reference in Black Ops 1? Yes, viewers, this Easter egg manifests as a friendly, non-playable AI soldier who can appear during various campaign missions. Unlike the main protagonists like Woods or Hudson, Sergeant Peppa is a randomly generated soldier whose specific name is pulled from a predefined name pool. He's typically seen wearing the standard military fatigues of the faction he belongs to, appearing as a US Marine or CIA operative, depending on the mission's setting. While he can technically spawn in any mission where Mason is the playable character, he is most frequently cited and verified in the final mission, Redemption. During the assault on the Rusalka cargo ship, players can verify his presence by aiming their crosshairs at friendly AI teammates. A name tag will appear above the soldier's head. If the random name generator has triggered the Easter egg, it will explicitly display Sergeant Peppa. The inclusion of Sergeant Peppa serves as a dual purpose. It anchors the game's atmosphere in the counterculture and musical shifts of the late 1960s, and it acts as a signature from the developers at Treyarch. During this era, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band was a defining cultural milestone, making it a fitting blink-and-you-miss-it detail for a game centered on the Cold War. Also, it's important to note that Sgt. Pepper has no unique dialogue or special abilities. He functions like any other friendly AI soldier in the squad. His appearance is not guaranteed in every playthrough due to the randomized nature of the name pool for generic NPCs. To see him, players often need to check multiple soldiers across several restarts of the level until the name eventually cycles through. Interestingly, in the mission Redemption, almost all friendly NPCs are assigned a rank of at least Corporal to reflect the high-stakes, elite nature of the assault on Dracovich's ship. This makes the appearance of Sergeant particularly appropriate for the squad leaders or more experienced AI units present during the finale. Most of you, like me, might have thought at first that the defector is Reznov. Well, the dev team wanted us to believe that for the twist in the game. The truth, only revealed much later in the game, is far darker. The defector was an unnamed person from the Call of Duty Black Ops level The Defector. He was killed during the attack on Hughes City before the SOG team could get him. The defector was a vital contact for establishing Soviet involvement in Vietnam and possibly in other projects, such as Nova 6. At the time, SOG operative Alex Mason believed the defector was Viktor Reznov, though it's later established that the real defector was confirmed to be dead. The real defector died before Mason and the others even reached the safe house in Hughes City. The Reznov that Mason speaks to, receives the dossier from, and fights alongside throughout the mission is entirely a product of his fractured, brainwashed mind. Inside the safe room, Mason believed that he was reunited with Reznov, although Reznov was a figment of his imagination, as the real one had died after Mason got on the train from Vorkuta. The dossier Mason retrieves is real, but the person he believes handed it to him never existed in that room. To fully understand the Hughes City hallucination, one must understand what was done to Mason's mind at Vorkuta. Hudson reveals that while at Vorkuta, Mason was subjected to severe mental reconditioning to turn him into a sleeper agent who would perform Soviet missions in America, including assassinating President Kennedy. However, Reznov hijacked his programming and used it to instill in Mason an absolute devotion to complete Reznov's vow for revenge, to kill Drakovich, Kravchenko, and Steiner. Hudson reveals that Reznov died after Mason jumped onto the train during the escape from Vorkuta. All the years Mason thought Reznov was with him, it was only his mind. In other words, by reprogramming Mason's brainwashing, Reznov embedded himself so deeply into Mason's psyche that Mason's damaged mind continued generating Reznov as a living, present companion, or more like a guardian figure who kept appearing across missions, conversations, and now, in the safe room in Hue City, as the defector himself. The Reznov witnessed by Mason was described as a guardian angel-like hallucination, possibly developed by multiple personality disorder. Treyarch embedded subtle signals throughout the defector and surrounding missions that the player could, in hindsight, recognize as evidence of Mason's delusion. There is no friendly fire penalty for continuously shooting at Reznov in any level other than Vorkuta, due to him being a hallucination. And since he's a hallucination, all enemies killed by him are most likely killed by Mason in reality, and those who fired at Reznov are most likely firing at Mason. Even more telling is a specific moment in a later mission. At one point, Swift, a SOG operative accompanying Mason, turned around and asked what was wrong with him, seemingly annoyed with his conversation because from Swift's perspective, Mason was talking to no one. Woods would say, "What the F are you doing, Mason?" because from Woods' point of view, there was nothing there. These moments were Treyarch's deliberate, careful foreshadowing, giving observant players the tools to question what they were seeing before the final revelation arrives. The iconic main menu screen is by far the most popular and most loved in the series, but did you know that it has some secrets of its own? Yes, from the very first moment a player loads Call of Duty Black Ops, they're placed inside the game's interrogation room as Alex Mason, who's strapped to a chair, surrounded by flickering monitors, exactly as seen in the campaign's framing device. Rather than this simply being a static menu backdrop, Treyarch embedded a fully interactive Easter egg into it. In the main menu, players can alternately pull the left and right controller triggers as quickly as possible, left right, left right, left right, to break free from their restraints, earn an achievement or trophy, and explore the interrogation room at will. The controls differ across platforms. On PC, the player moves the mouse down to see the chair straps, then clicks the left and right mouse buttons repeatedly until the straps break and the character stands up. On PS3, the L2 and R2 buttons are pressed repeatedly. On the Nintendo Wii version, the player shakes the remote and nunchuck repeatedly until the character stands. On the Wii Classic controller specifically, the player repeatedly presses ZL and ZR to escape from the chair. The Easter egg works on every platform the game shipped on, with each version having its own platform-appropriate input method. From what we can find, breaking free is actually far more than a visual curiosity. It rewards players with a tangible in-game recognition. Successfully escaping from the torture chair unlocks a secret achievement called Just Ask Me Nicely. Once standing, Mason can freely walk around the interrogation room, the same tiled, monitor-lined room that serves as the narrative anchor of the entire game's campaign. There's a computer console situated behind the chair that can be accessed by walking up to it and pressing the corresponding buttons. From here, the player is automatically logged in as none other than Alex Mason, the main character. This is where most of the fun comes into play. In the back of the room, there's a terminal that the player can hold X on the Xbox 360 controller to access, bringing up an on-screen keyboard. The terminal is styled as the Central Intelligence Agency data system, which is a fully functional, navigatable computer interface built directly into the game's main menu. It's one of the most ambitious, detailed main menu Easter eggs ever built into a first-person shooter. The terminal is far more than a cosmetic prop. It accepts real-typed commands that unlock content, reveal lore, and even launch fully playable games. Entering DOA plays Dead Ops Arcade. Entering 3-Arc Intel unlocks all the intel in the game for viewing, though this disables the Closer Analysis trophy. Entering 3-Arc Unlock unlocks all levels and zombie mode levels. Entering Zork unlocks Zork 1, The Great Underground Empire, an influential text adventure game from 1980, which can be played in its entirety on the terminal. Entering Help gives a list of commands to interface with the console. Entering DIR gives a list of audio files and pictures that can be opened with the CAT command. The Zork inclusion is particularly notable. Zork is a text-based adventure game based on the early computer game from 1979, and can be played on the computer terminal in Call of Duty Black Ops by typing Zork into the blank text prompt. It can also be launched by typing Hello Sailor. The startup screen displays Zork 1, The Great Underground Empire. Copyright 1981, 1982, 1983, Infocom Incorporated, all rights reserved. Playing Zork unlocks its own separate achievement called Eaten by Gru, awarded for playing Zork on the terminal. Beyond the games and cheats, the terminal contains a deep well of in-universe lore accessible through a multi-user account system. The computer console can take a few basic Unix commands, allowing the player to traverse a limited set of directories. Many files include information relating to the story of each character, as well as concept art and sound clips from the game. Typing mail and hitting enter takes the player to the inbox of the currently logged in person, with 11 emails in Mason's inbox that can be read, some of which allude to the fact that there are other users on the computer terminal. Players can switch between accounts using the rlogin command. Confirmed login accounts accessible from the terminal include Alex Mason, password, password; Frank Woods, password, Philly; Jason Hudson, password, Bryant1950; Gregory Weaver, password, Gideon; John F. Kennedy, password, Lancer; Richard Nixon, password, Checkers; Joseph Bowman, password, UWD, and plenty more. Each account contains unique files and emails that expand on the characters in the game's Cold War narrative far beyond what is told in the campaign itself. Players can also enter the rlogin Dreamland command to log into an account with MJ12 access, a reference to the real-world conspiracy theory surrounding Majestic 12, the alleged secret government group. Dead Ops Arcade is a minigame inspired by the arcade classic Smash TV, using the left analog stick to walk and the right analog stick to rotate the player's gun. Zork is a text-based adventure game originally released in 1980. A USB keyboard can be plugged into the Xbox 360 to play more comfortably. The main menu Easter egg is significant not just as a fun hidden feature, but as a reflection of Treyarch's broader design philosophy for Black Ops. The entire game is framed around Mason's interrogation, the chair, the room, the monitors, and placing the player in that same chair from the very first screen creates an immediate thematic connection to the story. Allowing the player to break free from that chair before they even start the game is a quietly powerful piece of design. It mirrors Mason's eventual psychological liberation from his brainwashing, and it rewards curiosity and exploration in a way that pays off immediately with unlockable content and hidden lore. Players can read letters from Mason's family, look at concept art, listen to soundtrack music, and attempt to break into other government agencies' databases, all from a terminal hidden behind a chair in the main menu of a first-person shooter. It remains one of the most celebrated and widely remembered Easter eggs in the entire Call of Duty franchise. The Nuketown map we all love so much has a real-life and kinda creepy origin story. The map was actually built based on the 1950s real-life nuclear test sites by the US government, yet it took heavy inspiration from a film. It's important to be precise about the chain of inspiration here. The real Doomtowns inspired the movie scene, and the movie scene inspired the map. Treyarch may have taken inspiration from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the Indiana Jones movie released shortly after Black Ops entered development, in which Indy survives a nuclear test by hiding out in the fridge of a replica suburban home. But Crystal Skull itself drew on the all-too-real Doomtowns of the 1950s, creepily detailed fake settlements the US government built to measure the impact of its nuclear weapons. The confirmed link between the film and the map comes directly from Treyarch's own design team. In a Treyarch interview, David Vonderhaar said that the map was inspired by the scene in the 2008 film Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, in which Jones, pursued by Soviet soldiers, comes across a nuclear testing site with a replica of a typical 1950s suburb and survives the nuclear blast by hiding in a refrigerator. In addition to the interview, he also mentioned it in a now-deleted tweet. Black Ops game designer and director David Vonderhaar is on the record saying the popular map is based on a throwaway scene from the 2008 sequel in which Indy wanders onto the grounds of a nuclear test site town and discovers that he must find a way to escape an impending blast. The origin story of Nuketown as a piece of game development is just as remarkable as its thematic inspiration. The map actually began as a personal side project, like it wasn't commissioned officially or something. The map itself started as an unofficial project for level designer Adam Hogarth, who took the idea and had a working design up and running in only 2 days. Hogarth explained how one of the most popular maps in video games started with a random email. An email came out from David Vonderhaar saying, "Hey, what if we make a small map based on those nuclear testing towns?" I started getting ideas in my head instantly. Hogarth moved so fast on the concept that the rest of the team was caught off guard. Black Ops producer Miles Leslie was apparently not in the original email chain, because he was not aware of the Nuketown concept, saying, "Adam came in and was like, hey, I made this map. We didn't ask you to make this map. Why did you make this map?" Thankfully, Miles and the team immediately recognized the potential of Adam's concept anyway, and Nuketown was born. It was quickly a favorite among the Black Ops developers. Nuketown would ultimately play a crucial role in the development of the game, inspiring a level of creativity that would show up time and time again in Black Ops multiplayer. The map's randomly spawning mannequins and iconic end-of-match nuke sequence led to interactive features found on other maps, such as Launcher's rocket liftoff and Kowloon's zip. Every element of Nuketown's design in Call of Duty Black Ops was considered carefully, with numerous hidden details layered throughout. The street sign Trinity Ave, clearly visible from the loading screen, is a reference to Trinity Site in New Mexico, where the first nuclear bomb was detonated. The school bus in the center of the map has Treyarch Unified School District on the sides. The red moving truck is a 1950 Peterbilt COE, and the grille has the letters WMD instead of COE, referencing the term Weapons of Mass Destruction. On the bookshelves in both houses, there's a book written by Edward Richtofen, referencing a main character from the Zombies mode. A portrait photograph on the upstairs desk of the Mason house is a portrait of Hank Kiersey, a military consultant for Treyarch during the development of Call of Duty Black Ops. Similar portraits are present in the campaign level USDD in the Zombie Map 5. In the version of Nuketown featured in Black Ops, an Easter egg existed that would place Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones if players managed to decapitate every single one of the map's mannequins in 15 seconds. Similar to real-world test sites, the map's houses are populated with fully clothed mannequins. At the end of each multiplayer game on Nuketown, a nuclear bomb is dropped on top of the location, obliterating it as the results of the match are displayed. The impact of Vonderhaar's post-Indiana Jones idea and Hoggett's two-day unofficial build proved impossible to overstate. Nuketown has become the most played multiplayer map in Black Ops history. The map has subsequently appeared in other Call of Duty titles, with the location changed to fit the game's setting. Nuketown has even been referred to as one of the most iconic maps in the Call of Duty series. The lesson Treyarch drew from how it came to exist became a guiding creative principle. Dan Bunting said Nuketown's evolution taught Treyarch a good lesson. Ideas generate other ideas, and sometimes you have to let someone not do what they're supposed to. Hoggett himself reflected on its origins years later. The original Nuketown has always been my favorite, mainly because of how it came about and how the studio rallied around it. Nuketown was supposed to be a film scene depicting a real Cold War test site. Still, through one designer's two-day burst of creative energy, it actually became one of the most replayed multiplayer arenas in the history of the first-person shooter genre, which is loved and cherished by players like us to this day. The origin of Nova 6 begins with its creator, a man who served the Nazi war machine before selling his science to its enemies. Dr. Friedrich Steiner is the tertiary antagonist in Call of Duty Black Ops. He was a German scientist and ex-Nazi who created the chemical weapon Nova 6, a nerve toxin capable of killing a human in a matter of seconds. Steiner was born on June 11, 1904 in Hamburg, then the German Empire. Before the war, Friedrich Steiner was a genius who had earned a collection of degrees and was thus sought by the Waffen-SS for his service in the various Wunderwaffen projects. The game's in-universe intel documentation expands on what drove the Nazis to commission this kind of weapon. When it became clear that the Allied powers were on the path to a military victory, Adolf Hitler and the Nazis began searching for less conventional ways to destroy their enemies. What they found was a terrifying and formidable weapon more devastating than even the Nazis could have imagined. Development began in January 1944 under the leadership of Friedrich Steiner, and by 1945, weaponized samples had been produced in sufficient numbers to arm at least a battery of V2 and the experimental V3 rockets. Steiner himself describes the creation of Nova 6 in the game's narrative. In 1943, the Führer realized that the Allies could not be held back much longer. We began to look for more unconventional solutions. Throughout the war, my own research was focused on chemical weapons. It was meticulous and frustrating work. However, what we finally developed was a weapon more effective than we ever dared to imagine. Before the Soviets stole this horrific weapon, the Nazis had a specific and terrifying deployment plan for Nova 6. Towards the end of World War II, when it became apparent that the war was lost for the Nazis, Steiner and a group of SS members prepared a cargo ship that would be used to fire V2 rockets containing the deadly Nova 6 toxin at control centers in opposing nations. According to Steiner himself, the first target was Washington, D.C., but Moscow was to be targeted soon after. Steiner explained that Nova 6 was a product of Nazi scientists' research and that they planned on arming their V2 rockets to annihilate Washington, D.C. and Moscow. However, once Berlin fell to the Soviets, the project was hidden. The intel files in Project Nova further confirmed that in 1945, British counterparts in MI6 inaccurately reported that the original Nova 6 test site, located outside of the municipality of Kopas on the border of Poland, was destroyed under heavy bombing. Reports indicated that the Nova 6 compound was transported on the Elbe River to the North Sea, where it was moved to a freighter for transport to an unknown location. MI6 reported that the freighter was destroyed on direct orders from Winston Churchill, and everyone on the ship was killed. However, it's later established that at a minimum, Drakovich, Kravchenko, and Steiner escaped with samples of the gas and headed back to Moscow. Destroying the original shipment did not end the Nova 6 threat. Although Reznov escaped after having destroyed the original Nova 6 shipment, for the next 23 years, Steiner worked for Drakovich to make a refined version of the toxin, the centerpiece of the conquest plan against America. The team's investigation believed that what ensued after 1945 was the Soviet resurrection of the German Nova 6 project. According to sources, it wasn't until 1959 that Drakovich was able to convince key party members of the necessity for a non-nuclear plan to defeat the West. The game also depicts a British scientist named Daniel Clark, who became central to this refinement process. Hudson and Weaver interrogate Daniel Clark, the British scientist who helped Soviets recreate Nova 6 in Kowloon, Walid City. Clark reveals the location of Drakovich's facility on Mount Yamantau before being killed by Drakovich's men. By 1968, when the main campaign of Black Ops takes place, Drakovich's plan was fully operational. Hudson explains that Drakovich has sleeper cells who will deploy Nova 6 across America following a series of numbers broadcast from his station. With the weapon carrying enough potency as it was refined over more than 2 decades from its original Nazi formula to threaten every state capital in the United States simultaneously. Did you know that in Black Ops there are files that are related to some early development campaign co-op that was cut in the final game? Well, to understand what was lost in Black Ops, it's essential to first understand what Treyarch had built in their previous title. Call of Duty World at War features a cooperative gameplay mode with up to 2 players via split screen on consoles or 4 players online for the first time in the franchise. This was a genuine landmark feature of Call of Duty, as no previous entry in the series had offered cooperative play through the full campaign. Campaign co-op was first featured in World at War, and unlike competitive co-op, players do not compete for points. Instead, it allows for cooperative play between friends or random players online to complete campaign levels. Players can start at the first level or any level that has already been completed in campaign mode. The feature was popular with players and represented a significant selling point for the game, establishing a precedent that fans naturally expected Treyarch to carry forward into the next title. When development of Call of Duty Black Ops began, campaign co-op was planned as a returning feature. Similar to Call of Duty World at War, the campaign was originally going to feature campaign co-op. Due to the massive shakeup, the map pack 4 for the previous title was scrapped to focus resources on rebuilding the campaign into a single-player experience. Strings referencing the feature remain. The existence of these leftover strings within the game's files is the primary technical evidence that the feature reached at least a partial development stage before being cut. The game's code contains references to co-op functionality that was never activated or surfaced in the final shipped product, serving as a digital archaeological trace of what was once planned. The confirmed facts are precise, like campaign co-op was cut from Black Ops during development, with leftover files remaining. It's unknown why the feature was scrapped. The upheaval caused by the campaign being reformatted into a single-player experience led to the cancellation of the 4th map pack for Call of Duty World at War. This is the key verified statement from the Call of Duty wiki, which is clear on one crucial point. The exact reason for scrapping campaign co-op in Black Ops is officially unknown. No confirmed developer statement has publicly explained the precise motivation for the cut. What is confirmed is the consequence, and to our knowledge, was that the campaign underwent a significant reformatting process into a purely single-player experience, and this reformatting was disruptive enough that it consumed resources beyond Black Ops itself. And folks, that wasn't all. The cancellation of the campaign co-op directly impacted the post-release content of World at War. A fourth map pack was originally planned for World at War, but resources were allocated to finish the Call of Duty Black Ops campaign in time, and the map pack was cut. This was not a minor DLC package either. The fourth map pack was supposed to include 3 zombies maps, being the Paris, Coast, and Theater levels, with all of them teased in the map Der Riser. Players who had spotted those teasers in Der Riser were left waiting for content that never arrived, a direct casualty of the scale of reorganization happening during Black Ops development. The co-op campaign restructuring consumed Treyarch's bandwidth significantly enough that a fully teased, partially developed DLC package for an already released game had to be abandoned entirely. Well, Black Ops developers were not that stupid to completely abandon cooperative play entirely. The cooperative experience was channeled into the Zombies mode. A zombie-themed survival co-op mode, titled Zombies, can be played with 4 players online or as a 2-player split-screen co-op mode. Originally featured in World at War, it was revamped to be included in Black Ops and future titles. This meant that while friends could no longer fight through the Cold War campaign together, they could still cooperate in the Zombies mode. The cut of campaign co-op also came alongside other scrapped content. During the development of Black Ops, many features were cut, including campaign co-op, along with many multiplayer and zombies maps. Many weapons, game modes, and other mechanics were also discarded during the development phase. Campaign co-op was thus one part of a broader pattern of cuts across all of Black Ops' game modes as the project was shaped into its final form. This removal of campaign co-op from Black Ops had a lasting impact on the franchise's trajectory. Campaign co-op is a feature in Call of Duty World at War and Call of Duty Black Ops 3, and a scrapped feature from Call of Duty Black Ops and Call of Duty Black Ops 4. The gap between World at War and Black Ops 3 represents 7 years during which Treyarch's signature co-op campaign feature was absent from its games, which was a direct consequence of the development shakeup that began when Black Ops was restructured. The decision made during Black Ops development to rebuild the campaign as a purely single-player experience proved to be the defining structural choice that shaped not just the game, but the franchise's approach to campaign design for years afterward. Call of Duty has been known for giving us bangers one after another, and they truly do not disappoint at Black Ops 1. The launch of Call of Duty Black Ops on November 9, 2010 was a landmark event that redefined the scale of entertainment releases. Within its first 24 hours of availability, the game sold approximately 5.6 million copies in North America and the United Kingdom alone. This performance generated an estimated $360 million in revenue, setting a record for the largest entertainment launch at the time. To make you understand in some nerdy way, the game earned more than twice as much as the highly anticipated opening of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. This massive debut allowed Activision to shatter the previous Day 1 sales record held by its own predecessor, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Released just a year prior in 2009, Modern Warfare 2 had set the bar with 4.7 million copies sold and $310 million in first-day revenue. Black Ops surpassed these figures by roughly 19% in unit sales and 16% in total revenue, marking the second consecutive year that the Call of Duty franchise established new records across all forms of media. The regional breakdown of these initial sales was equally impressive. In the US, retailers sold 4.2 million units, while the UK accounted for 1.4 million units. The launch was supported by an unprecedented 12,000 midnight openings worldwide, catering to millions of fans who waited to play the title the moment it was released. On the night of the launch, Treyarch's community manager reported that more than 1 million players were online simultaneously on the Xbox Live version alone. Beyond the first 24 hours, the game continued to dominate the market. It reached $650 million in sales within its first 5 days, again besting the $550 million 5-day record set by Modern Warfare 2. By the end of its first 6 weeks, Black Ops had already crossed the $1 billion revenue milestone, joining an elite group of entertainment products like the film Avatar to reach that mark so rapidly. It eventually became one of the best-selling games of all time, with over 25 million copies sold worldwide. Like almost every other game, Black Ops 1 also had some leaks before its record-breaking launch. The pre-launch rumors surrounding the setting of Call of Duty Black Ops began in earnest in May 2009, roughly 18 months before its eventual release on November 9, 2010. These reports, initially surfacing via that video game blog and later cited by major outlets like Kotaku and GameSpot, alleged that Activision was actively pursuing licensing for Vietnam War-era music. This sparked intense speculation that the seventh installment in the franchise would move away from World War II to focus on the Cold War conflict in Southeast Asia. The leaked information suggested that Activision was not only looking for 1960s American rock, but also specifically seeking licensing for Cuban, Soviet, and African music. This broader search for international tracks hinted that while Vietnam might be a primary setting, the game would likely span multiple global locations associated with the Cold War era, a detail that was later confirmed by the final game's mission in Cuba, the USSR, and Hong Kong. The credibility of these rumors was bolstered by comments from Noah Heller, a senior producer at Activision who had worked on World at War. In interviews with publications like Official Xbox Magazine, Heller stated that World at War was intended to be the franchise's final World War II title, effectively putting the war to bed. This created a narrative vacuum that fans and insiders immediately filled with the Vietnam setting, supported by the specific musical licenses being sought. By February 2010, further evidence emerged in the form of a casting call for Call of Duty 7, which described characters and scenarios involving the 1960s and 1970s, including battles in South Vietnam. Although Activision maintained its standard no comment on rumor and speculation policy, these persistent leaks formed a cohesive picture of the game's direction long before the official announcement of the Black Ops title on April 30, 2010. In the final release, the licensed music mentioned in those early rumors became iconic parts of the experience. Specifically, the inclusion of Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones and Fortunate Son by Creedence Clearwater Revival in missions like Crash Site and SOG directly mirrored the initial 2009 reports. The game eventually featured a total of 15 missions, with Vietnam serving as a central setting for several, including the defense of Khe Sanh and the Tet Offensive in Hue. Did you know the international releases of Call of Duty Black Ops faced significant regional modifications to comply with strict local laws and rating standards, particularly in Japan and Germany? These changes ranged from visual alterations to the complete removal of specific gameplay mechanics and licensed audio, creating a noticeably different experience for players in those markets. Well, it was a bit weird, but in Japan, the localization was handled by Square Enix, which had to implement cuts to secure a release rating from CERO, the Computer Entertainment Rating Organization. Despite being rated Z, ages 18+, Japanese laws at the time strictly prohibited grotesque portrayals, leading to the complete removal of dismemberment across all versions. This change significantly affected the zombies mode, as players could no longer blow off limbs to create crawlers, a common tactical strategy. Additionally, a specific interrogation scene in the campaign involving broken glass was edited to remove the most graphic details of the expressions of brutality. The German version was subject to even more rigorous oversight by the USK, because German law, specifically Section 86A of the Criminal Code, prohibited the use of symbols in unconstitutional organizations. All Nazi swastikas were replaced with the Iron Cross. This was most prominent in the Kino de Toten Zombies map, where flags and banners were redesigned. Furthermore, the German low-violence version removed blood splatter, the ability to burn enemies, and several torture sequences in the campaign to avoid being banned from sale by the government. One of the most unique changes in the German release was the removal of the song Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones. While the song is featured prominently in the international version during the Crash Site mission as players pilot a boat up the May River, it was stripped from the German game. This was primarily due to the USK's refusal to rate the game with the song included, as its upbeat tone during a violent combat sequence was deemed to glorify or trivialize war, which violated local content standards at the time. These censorship efforts often led to region locking for the Steam and console versions, preventing German and Japanese players from playing alongside those with the uncut international versions. While some of those restrictions, particularly regarding Nazi imagery in video games, have been relaxed in Germany since 2018, the original 2010 release of Black Ops remains one of the most heavily modified titles in the franchise's history. This game was so up to the hype that they really had to make a mobile spin-off for this. Yes, viewers, Call of Duty Black Ops Mobile is the spin-off version of Treyarch's Call of Duty Black Ops. The game was developed by Glue Mobile, published by Activision, and released on December 30th, 2010 for mobile phones. The game is set in Vietnam on September 7th, 1967. United States intelligence reports that the NVA is preparing a large-scale surprise attack against the troops in Quang Tri province. Being short of operatives, Command summons the Studies and Observation Group, SOG, to infiltrate and disrupt the enemy supplies in order to slow down the NVA. The platoon, commanded by Brandon Cornelius Stafford, is inserted in the middle of the jungle. The game consists of 15 missions, some of which allow the player to control different characters. Assignments include patrols, attack on enemy bases, or defending a position from an attack wave. The player's rifle automatically aims at enemies and requires only the fire button to be pressed. The player can also throw grenades, which are automatically aimed after selection. Grenades are limited and must be restocked by collecting ammo boxes. Despite its changes from the main series, the game includes considerable variety. Players participate in chopper battles, boat chases, and daring escapes from brutal ambushes. The multi-character system also changes the weapons available to the player depending on who they control in a given mission, providing some variation across the 15-mission campaign. The mobile spin-off shares its time period with the console original but is otherwise an entirely separate product. The main Call of Duty Black Ops on consoles is a first-person shooter developed by Treyarch, set in the 1960s during the Cold War, following CIA operative Alex Mason as he attempts to recall specific memories to locate a numbers station set to instruct Soviet sleeper agents to deploy chemical weapons across the United States. The mobile version shares none of this plot, none of these characters, and none of this narrative structure. The mobile game abandons the intricate narrative of its console counterpart, which means there is no timeline-jumping storyline or multi-layered conspiracy theories. The story is comparatively straightforward. Both games are set in Vietnam in 1967 during the broader Cold War era, and both involve MACV SOG units, but that is where the connection ends. The mobile title stands entirely on its own as a self-contained campaign. Did you know that the man known as the father of zombie films has a major appearance in Black Ops 1? Yeah, in the Call of Duty Black Ops Zombies map, Call of the Dead, George A. Romero appears as a powerful boss zombie and the main antagonist. He is a fictionalized version of the real-life horror director, providing his likeness for the character, though his voice is provided by an unknown actor. Lore-wise, Romero was researching a film based on Nazi documents regarding Element 115 when he was snatched and infected by a real zombie during filming on a Siberian island. He has two states, calm and berserk. In the calm state, he spawns at the start of every game in the water and follows the player closest to him at a very slow walk. In this state, he has a blue aura and a mostly human appearance. But things get pretty gnarly when he's in his berserk state. He enters this state of shock or if he successfully hits a player. He roars. His clothes tear to reveal rotting flesh, and he begins sprinting after players while swinging his stage light. While enraged, he can strike the ground with his electrified stage light to shock players or buff nearby zombies, turning them into faster sprinters. He can also jump to high ledges or ride zip lines to reach players. Calming him is also possible by leading him into any body of water. A shot from the VR-11 weapon can temporarily calm him. Defeating Romero was best handled with high-damage weapons like the Pack-a-Punch Scavenger, Hyena Infrared, or Dragunov D135 Primer, focusing on headshots for maximum damage. Keep in mind that he is no ordinary guy. He is completely immune to insta-kill and nukes. If a nuke is activated, he will laugh at the players in mockery. The globally cherished zombie mode was actually a passion project that became a legend. The concept for the zombies mode was created by Treyarch designer Jesse Snyder during the development of Call of Duty World at War. The idea emerged after several developers wanted to include a bonus stage in the game, similar to what the preceding title, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, had offered. The original concept was not about zombies at all. Their initial idea was to create a minigame where players took on the role of German soldiers fighting off waves of Allied attackers at the Normandy landings, though this was scrapped. The zombie concept only truly crystallized when, as described by Jason Blundell, who later became a key creative force on the mode, during the development of a campaign level featuring an airfield, Nazis were getting bombed in a sequence and emerged walking forward while on fire, prompting developers to observe, they look like zombies, leading to the idea, well, what if they just come through the smoke and you fight them? What makes this origin story so remarkable is that it was built almost entirely outside of official studio hours. Treyarch studio head Mark Lemire was surprised to find that some internal teams were secretly prototyping a version of the cooperative mode that featured Nazi zombies. Treyarch was behind schedule, fully crunched in its work on the next release in one of the biggest game franchises of all time, and some teams were staying late on unplanned, unapproved work. According to Blundell's account, different departments began to put the mode together largely in their free time, of which there was little to spare since Treyarch and Activision were trying to get World at War out the door. The animation team being among the first groups to get involved after the initial concept was formed. At this point, Zombies was functional and fun. A single map filled with player models and other assets ripped from the campaign and put players against waves of the undead. Employees were taking time out of their lunch to play the game and lasting as long as they could for the sake of bragging rights. Jesse Snyder himself sacrificed sleep and worked both at the studio and on his own time to push the mode forward. Working both at the studio as well as in his spare time, and as more developers started working on the mode, it became Nazi Zombies with its first map, Nuketown. The mode rarely made it into the game at all. When Treyarch studio head Mark Lemire heard about the mode's existence, he initially tried to shut it down due to the state of development at the time and how they were behind schedule. However, when he played the mode for himself, he decided that the mode had to be finished and put into the final game. Even then, the path forward was uncertain. He believed Activision would likely not accept the mode, fearing that it would be doing something so off with such a successful brand and would likely be too ridiculous to market. He decided to let the popularity of the mode spread throughout the development team rather than pitch the mode formally. There was also a significant cultural sensitivity issue at play. Blundell noted that World at War was a very serious campaign, which ended with the atomic bomb being dropped, and there was a great sensitivity about how to treat that respectfully. So the idea of making a zombies mode in this game was described as very sensitive. Ultimately, an agreement was reached where the mode would not be marketed as part of the game and would only be unlockable after players completed the game's campaign as a bonus mode. The decision not to advertise zombies was, counterintuitively, one of the most important factors in its explosive popularity. As Blundell explained, it was decided that we put it as a mode unlocked after the campaign. There'd be no marketing behind it at all. He credited that single decision as the reason why zombies became so popular. Because we didn't push it, we didn't talk about it, didn't do anything, so the community owned it. The lack of promotion made unlocking the mode after beating the campaign feel reminiscent of retro gaming reward systems, a hidden bonus in an industry increasingly dominated by DLC and paid content. It was very much word of mouth, spreading organically through players who were stunned to find a full cooperative horde mode hidden inside a serious wargame. The strong positive reactions to the mode convinced Activision that there was more to Zombies than a simple one-off game, and Treyarch began to work on including zombie maps in its map packs alongside traditional multiplayer maps. By the time Black Ops launched on November 9, 2010, Zombies was a core selling point of the game. The base game featured 3 maps: 5, Kino de Toten, and the unlockable Dead Ops Arcade. Crucially, Kino de Toten was the first map available in Black Ops and introduced new components to the Zombies mode, including crawler zombies and the fire pit trap, while also introducing the Thunder Gun as a new wonder weapon. Unlike in World at War, where Zombies was locked behind campaign completion, Kino de Toten was automatically unlocked and did not require the campaign to be completed, unlike 5. The map 5, set in the Pentagon and featuring Cold War politicians including President John F. Kennedy, Richard Nixon, Fidel Castro, and Robert McNamara, could be unlocked upon completing the campaign or by entering the code 3ARC unlock on the in-game computer terminal. The decision to embrace this side project was transformative for Treyarch. Lemire stated that it taught the studio to follow the fun and passion, to bet on a dedicated and talented team, and that there is room for innovation even within one of the most established franchises in gaming. The passion project born in stolen lunch breaks had become the defining feature of an entire sub-series. And hey, if you're still awake, why not hit that like button and hit subscribe for more videos like this one?